Hello and welcome in for another episode of Below the Rim Basketball. I am your host, Quinn Carey. Here with you, we are going through a full slate of NBA playoff games from the weekend. We're going to recap those, take a look ahead to tonight's games, as well as what some of these series could look like going forward after our first weekend is in the books. If you are joining me here on YouTube, again, I really appreciate you being here, taking the time to watch this video. Make sure to throw this a like, subscribe to the channel, and all of that good stuff. Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear your takes, get some feedback on my takes. Tell me when I'm wrong, tell me when I'm terrible, tell me if I get something incorrect. Happens all the time. So again, just appreciate you being here with me as I try to grow this page. This is Below the Rim Basketball, and I am Quinn Carey. So we're gonna get right into it. We'll just kind of go through the weekend. I have a couple games that I want to touch on and talk about some key talking points, but just kind of going through the weekend, there was not a ton of close games. All of the number one seeds minus Detroit, who we're going to talk about in length here a little later in the show, all won. So all the top seeds won. One is projected. The chalk kind of prevailed for the most part, minus that Orlando-Detroit game. And a lot of blowouts. Ton of blowouts, particularly from your top 1s and 2 seeds, again, minus Detroit, even the 3 seeds and stuff, getting it into double digits, having double-digit leads in the second half, and never really looking back, never really having much of a threat of losing these games. So not a super exhilarating weekend. A handful of game ones that were close down to the final handful of minutes, but nothing super crazy as I go through here. We started off with Cavs-Raptors, which, man, was I wrong on the Cavs. I picked the Raptors to win that series in our previous episode, which does not look very good after game one. All of these games, you don't want to overreact too much after game one. We've seen crazy stuff happen in the past with teams that don't end up winning a single game the rest of the series, winning that first game. And so you just don't want to take too much out of it. A lot of the times teams are feeling each other out and getting a read on the other team, getting some notes and data points for the rest of the series. So I was totally wrong on the Raptors. I thought they might go in and win game one, and I actually thought they shot it pretty well, but the Cavs, the defensive effort from Toronto was just atrocious. The Cavs just shredded them, particularly there. Third and fourth quarter just came out in a tsunami, which offensively the Cavs have the capability of doing, which we've seen, but that looked much more like the Cavs team that we maybe anticipated going into this year. Obviously Harden, a new piece there, and so he's giving you a little bit more than what we maybe saw Darius Garland give you last year in the playoffs. So that was huge for the Cavs to see him get going. Mobley and Allen on the inside just make it really tough for offensives to get in there. And I thought Toronto just did not look very prepared. They looked disjointed offensively. Again, the defensive effort was atrocious. They are a team that tries to get out in transition. And so just none of that there. So Cavs totally wrong on that one, at least through game one. We'll see what happens. The Nuggets beat the Wolves as kind of anticipated here, despite Jokic not even really playing super great. We'll talk about that series at the very end of the show here in our picks. You had the Knicks beating the Hawks. Again, another game that was kind of went as we talked about last week, where it was a close game. The Hawks kind of show that they have a little bit more firepower than maybe a lot of teams or people know that don't watch them on the day-to-day and on the regular. But the Knicks just too much offensively for them down the stretch. So Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, like we talked about, just a little bit too much offensively. So exactly as we kind of predicted that one here on the show. And then our nightcap on Saturday that I do want to talk about for a little bit here was our Lakers versus Rockets. And talk of kind of the Saturday night, Lakers pull out the win despite being shorthanded with no Luka, no Austin Reeves. Again, the little caveat for Houston is that Kevin Durant did not play. Again, I picked Houston in this series, not anticipating that Kevin Durant was going to bump into a teammate in practice, injure himself, not playing game one. I still, if no Luka, no AD, I still think Houston is probably in a good position to win this game, particularly if KD comes back. If he doesn't, all bets are off. I think the Lakers, as they showed, have a great chance to win this even without Luka or Austin Reeves. But the real story there is just LeBron is still delivering at age 41, year 23, whatever year this is for him, just been doing it literally forever. So he was unbelievable, playing like a big 6'9", like Magic Johnson or Chris Paul point guard nowadays in year 41, which is pretty crazy that in his old age, that's what he's looking like. Just absolutely controlled the pace from the beginning. He's just so smart. It felt a lot like some of those Olympic basketball games that we watched in 2024 where just basketball IQ was above everybody else's on the court, able to control things, able to get guys in positions. Luke Kennard with a game-high 27 points, 5 for 5 from 3, and LeBron just finds a way, even when he's dealing with, on NBA standards, what might be a little bit of a ragtag crew of guys, particularly in a playoff series against a good defensive team. LeBron just finds a way to get the best out of them. He himself pouring in 19 points, 8 rebounds, 13 assists, which is just insane, and had a chance to share the floor with Bronny. Just all sorts of really, really cool storylines in that one. And I think it does kind of speak to the disappointment that Houston has had this year, because they've been a pretty good team when Kevin Durant has not played in games this year. And so I think this one, he may have been close to ready to go, at least, maybe not 100% obviously, but at least close enough to being able to play. And I think this is just a little bit of an indictment on Houston, where I think they viewed this as a game that they could still win without Kevin Durant playing, and they weren't able to take down the Lakers in game one. Now this series and the momentum has totally flipped. And it leaves me, as I'm watching this, I'm wondering, I'm looking ahead at the series schedule. Are we sleeping on the Los Angeles Lakers? Because if they can pull out, now they just need to win 1 out of the next 4 games in this series to extend it to a game 6. And if we get it to a game 6, we're in early May. Is there a chance that Austin Reeves, maybe Luka Doncic, comes back to this team and rejoins? And then all of a sudden you're looking at, even if you're down 3-1, 3-2 in that series, you're still looking and feeling like you got a good shot if you can get one of those guys coming back to join LeBron with the way that they've been playing, particularly if they can steal another one here at home in Los Angeles. I think that we could be sleeping on the Lakers in the series, myself included. I picked Houston Rockets going into this, but now the momentum has just absolutely shifted after game 1. That is a huge win for the Lakers. They now have a chance to win one more at home, whether it be in game 2, whether that be in game 5. And if you can win either one of those ones, albeit even if you could ever steal one on the road down in Houston, I think that's going to be particularly tough, even if, particularly if Kevin Durant comes back, But I think that the Lakers have a great chance to win this series. And if they are able to get Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves coming back, well, even though there might be a little bit of a rust factor with those two, maybe early on, there's also going to be the rest factor where those two are going to be coming back rested, being out for the last handful of weeks, and coming in fresh, going into a second round series, which if you're playing the Oklahoma City Thunder, which the Lakers would be, you're going to need all the firepower you can get. You're going to need your guys rested and healthy and ready to go. So if the Lakers can extend this series even another game, I think that opens the door for the potential return of Austin Reeves or Luka Doncic. And if that is to happen, this team could get rolling with the way LeBron is playing, with the way he has engaged the other role players. And you could see them roll through this series and maybe even give the Oklahoma City Thunder a little bit of a fight there in the second round. So that's what I'm rooting for the theater of it all. I think that would be the most entertaining. No offense to Houston, I touched on this last episode, but I just don't think that they have really ever gelled. The addition of Kevin Durant, obviously an all-time great, but they have just never quite gelled and been a cohesive unit. So I think having a fully healthy Lakers roster that's able to pull out this series and then go on to play Oklahoma City would be a lot better for fans and would just be a lot more exciting for the league in general, and give them the best chance to actually take down the Oklahoma City Thunder, which after this weekend, as we all know, they're incredible and a juggernaut. I'm not sure anyone's taking down the Oklahoma City Thunder, but we're going to see. Only time will tell. We did predict they're going to cakewalk to the Western Conference Finals, so a lot to still be determined. If the Nuggets can get there like I predict, I think they have a chance to take them down, or the Spurs, like we saw, looked really great over the weekend. So we're going to transition with that into the Spurs. Just an awesome game last night, Sunday. They were the last game of the weekend. And what an atmosphere there in San Antonio, between the throwback court with all the colors on it, the T-shirts that they gave to the fans, and what an awesome fan community there in San Antonio to not be too cool for school, because you see a lot of the times in some of these stadiums, you have these people that particularly courtside and the ones that you can see on TV have bought really expensive tickets. They're people with money. They don't want to put on the cheesy arena T-shirt, if you will. But just really cool from San Antonio and their fans. You saw Tim Duncan and David Robinson sitting there in the stands wearing the T-shirts, part of the just the atmosphere there. So really, really cool. There might not be a better atmosphere. I don't think there is in the NBA, definitely not in these playoffs from what we saw over the weekend, and maybe not in American basketball. That was just incredible. I'm sure some college teams and some college arenas on rivalry games and things like that would give it a run for its money, but that was pretty cool. to see. And then the guy that we all know is just an alien, Victor Wembanyama, goes for 35 points in 33 minutes, just an absolute masterclass as he does. He is just so unique, an absolute unicorn. We've thrown around that term unicorn with guys like Kristaps Porzingis in the past and some of these big 7-foot-plus guys that can come in, have abilities to do things. Victor Wembanyama actually is a unicorn. The things that he does, it doesn't even look real. It literally looks like a created player in NBA 2K where you just jack the height as far as they'd let you put it and then put all the sliders all the way up and all his stats to 99. So he's just incredible, just insane to watch. I thought Stephon Castle had a great game despite not shooting it super well. He was only, I believe, 4 of 13 from the field, but 8 of 8 from the free throw line, played tremendous defense on the other end. This whole team guards you and makes you work for buckets. And then pouring in 7 rebounds from the guard position along with 7 assists. He was getting guys involved. So I thought Stephon Castle had a strong first playoff debut. Obviously, Victor Wembanyama looked incredible in his playoff debut, really announced himself to the rest of the league. But in watching that, it was one of those things where I'm watching and I'm saying, Wemby's playing great. They only played him 33 minutes. So in a game, as they go later into the playoffs, I anticipate that they will up that minutes usage. Only was averaging about 29 a game in the regular season. So I don't think they're going to try to overdo it here against Portland in this first series, knowing that likely probably Denver, and then if they were to get past Denver, eventually Oklahoma City is probably what waits for them the rest of this playoff run. So I don't think they're going to overdo it with him, which I think is smart. But with him only playing 33 minutes, he was super impactful in that time. But I thought that the Portland Trailblazers were able to just kind of hang around, and the Trailblazers stayed in it. They were making their shots. They were getting good looks. Drew Holiday had some great late buckets for them to kind of keep it in it. And again, you never thought in the second half there, early on, you thought that Portland was really kind of challenging, might cause a little bit of a threat for them, maybe pull in a game 1 upset. And then as the second half went on, it never quite felt like that. But they were able to just kind of stick around. And so you're looking up, you're saying, man, Wemby's playing incredible. The Spurs are dominating, the crowd is rocking. And they're up 9 points. So they're up 14 points, and then it gets quickly cut to 8 or something like that. And so they never really pulled away from the Portland Trailblazers. And I thought that they really kind of showed some of their youth in some of those moments, particularly early in the game, which playoff jitters, first playoff moment for majority of that roster. You understand that a little bit, but I also just thought there was just some sloppy mistakes, some not great decision making in key moments and in kind of critical situations and things like that. And I just thought they just kept letting Portland hang around. And obviously Portland is not a team in the Western Conference that anyone before the year anticipated would make any sort of noise. They've outperformed expectations, which is great for Portland. They have some good young players there, Denny Advia, Donovan Clingan, some of those guys there have really shown that they're going to be a team to reckon with here in the future, but they're not one of the teams in the Western Conference that is a tough out. I know they've been playing well down the stretch here, but this is a team, you saw Oklahoma City just absolutely blitz the Phoenix Suns. You saw Boston just absolutely steamroll Philadelphia. And so you would have liked to see kind of an effort like that from the number 2 seed. Again, I know they're young. I know this is the first playoff experience for a lot of them, and a win is a win in the playoffs, so does it matter what the window dressing kind of looks like, what the final score is? But I just thought that I saw some vulnerabilities. We saw down the stretch, obviously they have played well against Oklahoma City, but that's not the team they'll play in the next round. The team that they've really struggled with is the Denver Nuggets, and if they continue to play like how they played last night and let a team like the Portland Trailblazers hang around, a team like the Denver Nuggets will absolutely kill you if given those opportunities. Obviously, Jokic, Gordon, the rotation of guys that they have poses a bigger threat for Wemby and knows how to guard him a little bit better, knows how to attack him a little bit better offensively than what this Portland Trailblazers team has. So as exciting as it was to see Wemby's debut and to watch him score 35 points in 33 minutes and is just individually brilliant and great as Wemby is, I still think this team is just probably a year, maybe even 2 years away from kind of breaking through. I just think they're too young and too inexperienced. From what I watched from the Denver Nuggets up against the Minnesota Timberwolves, I don't see San Antonio beating them 4 times in 7 games in a series. And I see the way that the Nuggets played, and Jokic didn't even have a great game despite having a triple-double between Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Tim Hardaway Jr., some of the firepower that they have. I don't see San Antonio being able to stop that in a series, and I don't see them being able to do enough to beat them, again, 4 times in 7 games. So I think it's awesome for Wemby. I think they're going to cruise through this series, probably win in 5, like we said, get that first playoff series win, which is a big check mark. But I think we're getting a little bit over our skis on kind of the hype, and are the Spurs going to be the NBA champions? I still don't see that team going into a second-round series against the Denver Nuggets and winning 4 games. So really, really great for Wemby and San Antonio for their debut, but I don't see that team going past the second round this year. I see them again falling to the Denver Nuggets as I predicted, and I think this weekend just kind of confirmed that for me. So rounding out the weekend as we go through, as I said, the Celtics destroyed the 76ers. We then had the Thunder, even bigger shellacking of the Phoenix Suns. And then we got to our Pistons and Magic game there in the mid-afternoon, early evening time if you were on the East Coast, which obviously the Detroit Pistons, who I said, and I believe, and I quote, are going to curb stomp the Orlando Magic in this series, come up and lose game 1 outright and lose by double digits. So just kind of a wild outcome. It was one of those games that you have on the TV, and in the Thunder game, it was such a blowout. I started doing some stuff around the house, started getting ready for the work week, all of those things. As the Orlando game gets started, still finishing up some laundry and getting lunches and things ready and things like that. And so I start tuning in, and it's one of those games that you're watching and you're just thinking, okay, well, Pistons are going to, at some point, here comes the little run. And they started having them, and you're like, okay, here it goes. The floodgates are going to open. And it just felt like this game from both teams where it was like 10-3 run, followed by a 9-0 run from the other team, followed by a 8-2 run, followed by a 12-2 run, and just kept going back on these big runs. So there was never a ton of cohesive back and forth action. It was just a lot of mini runs from both of these teams. And Detroit was never able to elongate any of those. They'd have, again, like those little mini 10-point runs, get themselves back in the game, and then Detroit would have lapses, and Orlando would go on a little 8 to 10-point run, 12-point run, and take the lead right back. And that just kept happening all throughout the second half. Detroit never got a grasp on it. Cade Cunningham was absolutely fantastic with 39 points. He was doing everything in his power to will that team to victory there in the second half. And there was just nothing else from the Pistons roster offensively. Defensively, I thought they had a poor effort. I thought they weren't super engaged, weren't super locked in. I'm sure the lack of offense kind of contributed to that. But guys like Dennis Jenkins, Jalen Duren, first-time All-Star, it felt like they were just non-factors, and guys that have kind of taken a big step from last year that maybe aren't known by a ton of people that aren't following the NBA closely every single day. And unfortunately for them, after game 1, those people are still not going to know who those people are, those players are, because they were just absolute no-shows. I thought Paolo Banchero was incredible. I thought Cade was the best player on the floor by far, and then I think your next 3 best players were Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and then Jalen Suggs in that game. And so I thought the Magic just thoroughly outplayed them. And again, like I said earlier in the show, it's a game 1. You don't want to super overreact to everything, because I thought, again, Detroit, that was about as bad offensively as you could have seen, and they still had their chances down the stretch to cut into the lead, make this a game, and get the win there in that one, despite everyone except Cade not shooting the ball well, not playing well. But for Orlando, you've got to be upset with yourself. You've got to be pissed right now that you weren't able to get a top 5 seed, a top 6 seed, because we see all of these other matchups. If you put that Orlando team against the Knicks, I think they have a legit chance to win their entire series. I do think that Detroit, I think they're going to rebound. I don't think Orlando is going to win this series. I think Detroit is still going to win this series probably in 5, maybe 6 games now. But I see them right in the ship. If you can just get any sort of offensive contribution and any sort of better defensive effort in game 2 and any of these games going forward, I think they're going to be right there. Cade Cunningham's going to give you a chance in all of these games. I don't think Dennis Jenkins and Jalen Duren are going to play that poorly again going forward the rest of the series, given their history from this season. But so if you're Orlando, I still don't see you winning this series. But the way that you show, this is the team similar to the Cavs. This is what we've been waiting for all year. It finally has showed on that play-in game on Friday when they just kicked the crap out of the Charlotte Hornets. And then in this game, they looked incredible. They looked like they could be a team that, if positioned right, they could win the East and they could come out of it. And so if they can find a way to win this series, then obviously that opens things up, and then they have a great chance just like anyone in the East, it's wide open to go and get. I don't see that happening. And so if you're Orlando, if you're the coaching staff, if you're the front office, you watch the last 2 performances from the play-in and then game 1 here in this series, and you've just got to be kicking yourselves that you weren't able to get a higher seed and get out of one of these top 1, 2, 3 seeds, get out of their way in the first round. And if you were to play one of those top seeds, playing a Cavs or playing a New York Knicks would be a much better matchup in theory and give you a better chance down the line. So you just got to be upset with yourself if you're Orlando, because again, I don't see them pulling this series out. If they do, I'll eat my words, and then again, they'll be positioned in a pretty good spot because they'll be on the other side of the bracket from Boston, which is the only silver lining. But I just think that this just shows that this team had so much more potential than an 8 seed in the Eastern Conference, and again, compared to the Western Conference, in a weaker Eastern Conference, they had all the pieces, all the tools there to get out of the East, and they put themselves in a terrible position. So just got to be kicking yourselves. And again, I still see Detroit winning this in 5. Again, given the game 1 loss, maybe 6 games now for Detroit to win this series. But if I'm Orlando, I am just super upset. I'm super bummed, despite the win, that we couldn't get ourselves in a better position. Now, if you're the players for Orlando, obviously you're hyped. And I'm talking more front office, organizationally, coaching staffs, things like that. If you're the players and you're actively going into these games and things, you've got yourself a chance. You got yourself a game. You can split here in Detroit. If you're a betting person, I'd probably go with Detroit in game 2. I'd take that line. I have a feeling it's going to be a blowout. But now you can go back to Orlando, and even if you just split there, you still got a good spot. But if you can defend your home court, you can win this series. So if you're an Orlando player, you feel great. If you're an organizational person in Orlando, I would be feeling pretty crappy and feeling like we could have done so much more this season and put ourselves in a much better position going into the seeding and into the playoffs. So those are kind of the big takeaways from the weekend. We got some more games tonight. One little thing I want to touch on before I give you guys my playoff game picks for tonight for Monday night's games is Steve Kerr. Obviously, we saw the Warriors lose in the play-in game, in the second play-in game to the Phoenix Suns. And there's question marks about what the organization coaching-wise, Draymond Green, is he going to return? Lots of question marks around that. And then there was a story out this morning that I saw on my way in here to the station, and saying that particularly, obviously, if Steve Kerr is to leave, there is to be expected to be major changes top to bottom in the Warriors organization. Again, could see a coaching change. I talked about it a couple weeks ago with Dusty May from Michigan. Could somebody like him all of a sudden be on the Warriors' radar and see somebody like Dusty May or somebody from the college ranks or a young hotshot assistant coming up the ranks in the NBA? I don't really know. I haven't taken a great look at the coaching candidate pool for the NBA. I don't really know who's out there. So if they are to make that change from Kerr, it will be super interesting who they go with to try to pair with Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler to try to make a run. And then who's going to be left on the roster? Curry is the only one that I assume is untouchable, is not going anywhere. Will Jimmy Butler be back? Will Draymond Green be back? Will Kristaps Porzingis be back? All of these guys could be trade pieces. We'll see what type of draft pick they get. Could that draft pick be on the move for maybe a guy like Giannis or something like that? We've heard lots of rumors about Giannis coming to Golden State over the last handful of years. So going to be super interesting. We'll monitor that, obviously, as I'm sure you all will be doing as well. But we'll keep an eye on the Warriors. What happens there could finally be the official end of the Draymond Curry era of the Warriors. If they are obviously to make a change, it will be the end of that era. So pretty crazy, just a dynasty that ran the league, and so crazy to now kind of see it on the back end and starting to not necessarily like falter, because I think they've done a great job. This is how it goes as you age and teams age and progress. They won their championships. They've stayed together all this time, but now maybe they're looking at it saying maybe it's time for a change. If we organizationally, if we want to make one more run with Steph and then plan for the future after Steph, maybe it's time for a change there in the front office, and maybe with our personnel, with Draymond Green potentially on the move as well. So we'll see what happens there in Golden State, but just an interesting little thing that I saw this morning. So going into it, that's kind of our recap from the weekend of the NBA playoff games. And tonight, Monday's games, we've got a slate of 3 games. We've got the Raptors and Cavs are back on. Oh, I just lost my place. Excuse me here. Then we got the Knicks and the Hawks, and then the nightcap with the Nuggets and Timberwolves. So I don't love a ton of it. I wanted to say go with the Raptors plus 8.5, plus 9.5, wherever that line is now. I couldn't in good conscience go with that one as much as I want to see that happen for my series predictions. I just don't know. I don't know if I saw enough from the Raptors to trust them in any of these games to cover a spread against the Cavs, even with one as big as 8.5, 9.5 points in a 4-5 playoff matchup. But so instead, I want to watch that game. I think that's going to be a good, entertaining first game. I don't know what to make of the Knicks-Hawks series. I thought the Hawks were feisty, so I kind of want to stay away from that game tonight. But I think the under 222.5 points in Cavs-Raptors is my first pick for the Eastern Conference games. I'm expecting a much better defensive effort out of Toronto. Again, I thought that they really came in underprepared and just not engaged defensively in game one. And so I anticipate that there's going to be a major turnaround in effort on the defensive end. I also thought that the Raptors had great success in their one-on-one game against Cleveland. Where they were struggling was when they were going to the pick and rolls and things like that, allowing Mobley and Allen to kind of stack the paint and clog it up in there, so they didn't have great lanes to get in there and get buckets, and it's just tough to score against those Cavs bigs. But where they did have success was going with the one-on-one matchups, particularly from the wings with Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett had some success in those one-on-one matchups. So I would expect them to try to slow this pace down so that Cleveland doesn't get out to that massive lead, doesn't give them a chance to get out to one of those offensive runs like they can have. So I expect them to slow that pace down, go to that one-on-one game. I expect a better defensive effort out of Toronto, and both teams shot kind of above their average, particularly the Raptors. They had guys that have been pretty streaky for them, just hitting 3, 4, 5 threes in that game one. So also another reason why I couldn't trust going with the Raptors and the points, because I'm just not sure they can replicate that shooting. But another reason why I would say go with this under 222.5 points for Raptors and Cavs. I think we're going to see a slower, grinded out game that probably finishes, if I had to guess, I'm going to predict like a 105 to 97 type of game, something like that. So under in Raptors Cavs. And then for the nightcap, we've got the Nuggets and the Wolves. And I'm going with the Nuggets here in this one. I've talked a lot about them. They're obviously my NBA champion prediction pick, so I have them winning the championship. I have them winning the series in 5. I have them kind of shellacking the Timberwolves. And I see them covering 6.5 here tonight. I think I may have seen it move all the way up to 7.5. I still like it. I thought that the Timberwolves kind of swung early in game one, kind of shot their shot and built themselves that big lead. And it felt like, oh boy, here we go. Timberwolves, buckle up. Like they've got control. These teams have matched up well and have had weird matchups and really tight, close, contested matchups here over the past 4 years that they've met 3 times in 4 years in the playoffs. And so you thought, here come the Timberwolves. And Jokic isn't playing well. Jokic had a really weird first half where he was not super engaged, was not really looking for his own shot, was getting a lot of assists, which was good. He's obviously always involved, but he wasn't taking a ton of shots at one point. Pretty early in the second quarter, all he had was 3 threes attempted, were his only shot attempts. So kind of a weird first half from Jokic. You saw him kind of settle in. He had 19 points in the second half, really kind of settled in, started being aggressive, started attacking, looking to post up the Timberwolves bigs and looking to attack inside, and you saw them go on those big runs. Jamal Murray was great, a couple weird turnovers early, but then after that really got under control. He was awesome. Aaron Gordon in the second half kind of found his rhythm, found his groove, and Tim Hardaway Jr. contributing. And so I just think that after game one, I think that was kind of Minnesota's shot to steal one on the road, and of those first 2, I think Denver's going to adjust. I think Jokic is going to play much better. I think some of those guys found their groove in the second half. That's going to continue into game 2 here, and I see them rolling the Timberwolves tonight. So I'm going with the Nuggets minus 6.5, and the Raptors Cavs under 222.5. We'll see what happens with those. I will be back here on Wednesday with you guys. We'll talk again more, probably NBA playoffs are kind of the big thing here over the next handful of weeks. We'll get in as WNBA free agency and some transfer portal news happens. I'll keep monitoring that as I always do for our women's and college games. And as we get into our news on that, I'll bring in some things. But again, probably going to be relatively NBA heavy over the next handful of weeks with the playoffs upon us. And then we'll just keep touching on stuff and whatever kind of pops up. So again, if you're here on YouTube, I appreciate you taking the time. I will be back on Wednesday. We'll go Monday, Wednesday, Friday here for shows. So I will be back on Wednesday to talk tonight and Tuesday's Playoff games, again, if you also, for Tuesday night, lean Detroit. If you're, again, looking at those picks or anything like that, lean Detroit. I think they're going to come out and blow the doors off the Magic, get that series evened up. So just a little tidbit there for you guys before I go. So again, thank you so much. This has been Below the Rim Basketball. I am your host, Quinn Carey. Throw this video a like, subscribe to the channel, give me a comment, tell me what you think, tell me who you think is going to come out on top in some of these first round playoff series. Would love to hear from you guys. And again, until next time, thank you so much. This is Below the Rim Basketball.